Hey everyone, and welcome. So today we're taking this really fascinating article by Nick Sasaki and basically bringing it to life. It imagines a debate between some of history's greatest thinkers, all arguing about one thing. What's the real secret to building a good life? All right, let's dive in and see what they had to say.
Just imagine it for a second. What if you could get Aristotle, Viktor Frankl, and a modern thinker like Gad Saad all in the same room to hash out what it actually means to live a happy life? That's the whole idea we're exploring here. And we're not looking for some cheesy, feel-good slogans. We're looking for a real blueprint, a plan for happiness that can actually stand up to life's biggest challenges. So here's our game plan. Think of it as the architectural blueprint for our explainer. We're going to start with the foundation, the very bedrock of happiness, and then piece by piece, we'll build a framework for a life that feels truly worth living. Okay, first things first, before you can build anything that lasts, you have to know what you're building with, right? So, what's the strongest possible foundation for a good life? Let's hear what our panel of experts has to say about that. Aristotle kicks things off with a classic. He argues that chasing fleeting pleasures, what he calls appetite, is like trying to build a house on sand. It feels good for a minute, but it's totally unstable. For happiness that actually lasts, he says you need a solid foundation of virtue. You know, your character, the good choices you consistently make day in and day out. Now, Viktor Frankl, a man who survived the absolute horrors of the Holocaust, he offers a different cornerstone: meaning. His idea is so powerful. It's that if you have a deep enough why to live, you can get through almost any how. It's that sense of purpose that acts as your anchor when simple pleasure just isn't cutting it anymore. And finally, our imaginary host, Gad Saad, comes in with a much-needed reality check. His point is simple, but it's absolutely crucial. Any philosophy for a good life has to actually work in the real world for real, messy human beings. It can't just sound nice in a book. It's got to be reality tested. Okay, so we've got our foundation set with virtue, meaning, and a dose of realism. Now it's time to put up the two main pillars that are going to hold up the entire structure of your life. So what are these two giant pillars? Well, they represent two of the biggest, most life-altering choices you'll probably ever make: the person you choose to build a life with and the work you choose to do every day. So let me ask you, which one do you think really shapes your happiness more? Well, Gad Saad does not mince words here. The consensus from our imaginary panel is that while a great job can build your life, a bad partner can absolutely demolish it. And he uses that word on purpose: poison. Notice how it's not just about being unhappy at home. That poison, it seeps into everything: your confidence, your health, and yep, even your career. And get this, relationship researcher John Gottman actually doubles down on this poison idea. He gets super specific and says contempt is the single most toxic element. The second one person starts acting like the other is beneath them, the whole relationship just starts to rot from the inside out. All right, the external structure is up. We've got our foundation and our main pillars, but a house is just an empty shell without what's inside, right? So now we've got to turn inward. It's time to talk about the interior design. How do we furnish our minds to actually live well inside the life we've built? The source material describes our inner challenges as a kind of gauntlet that we all have to run. On one side, you've got the temptation of excess, of just too much. On the other, you've got the inevitable sting of failure. And then there's that constant, low-level hum of worry. Learning to navigate this gauntlet is pretty much the key to inner peace. Now, when it comes to dealing with that sting of failure, psychologist Angela Duckworth has an insight that is honestly a total game changer. She argues that it's not the failure itself that breaks us. It's the story we tell ourselves about it after the fact. And this slide just lays it out so perfectly. Saying "I failed" describes an action. It's a single event in time that you can learn from and then move on. But saying "I am a failure," well, that twists a temporary event into a permanent, destructive identity. That tiny shift in language is literally the difference between resilience and despair. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus kind of ties a bow on all of this. He basically argues that true freedom isn't about controlling what happens to you out in the world, because you can't. It's about controlling your response to what happens. If you can master your inner world, you become pretty much unshakable. So the house is built, the interior is designed, but now what? How do we actually live in it?
How do we make sure this structure we've built becomes a vibrant home and not just some empty museum of our past accomplishments? Wow, this quote from the incredible Robin Williams really serves as a powerful warning, doesn't it? It is so easy to get obsessed with optimizing everything, with being productive and just checking boxes, but he's reminding us that you can become so efficient that you completely forget how to be alive. Play, spontaneity, a sense of humor, these aren't just nice extras, they're essential. But what about the things we can't just laugh off? I'm talking about regret. Our panel suggests a really clear 3-step process here. First, you have to acknowledge what happened, no sugarcoating. Then, you use the pain from that to forge a new plan. And maybe most importantly, you have to stop letting yesterday's mistakes poison the life you have right now. Okay, we've come a long way. We've laid the foundation, we've put up the pillars, and we've designed the interior. So for our last section, let's bring it all together and take a look at the complete final blueprint for a life that is truly well built. And this table really sums it up. It contrasts the illusions about happiness we're all sold with the hard-won reality from these thinkers. The illusion? That happiness is just a feeling. The reality? It's a life you build. The illusion is that failure defines who you are. The reality is that failure is just information. The illusion is that worrying is the same as preparing. The reality? Nope, only action is preparation. And this really gets to the absolute heart of it. We're constantly shown this shallow, social media version of happiness, a life that's totally free of problems, or one that just looks perfect from the outside. But that's not a life, it's a performance. The real thing is so much deeper and way, way stronger. And we end on this beautiful, powerful line from the article's author. True happiness isn't one thing. It's the combination of two things. The inner work of shaping your character, that's the formed soul, and the outer work of making wise choices, that's the well-chosen life. It's not something you just stumble upon. It's something you build on purpose. So I guess the only question left is, what are you building today?